I started doing digital art, I think around when I was in middle school, and without taking much guidance from YouTube or other sources, I made a lot of mistakes and did a lot of strange things in those early years. And while a lot of what I'm going to mention is from back then, I also have some things to include that are much more recent, as in I realized I was doing them while planning this video. You might relate to some of these, or maybe find out you're currently doing something that would probably be best done differently. I think I've said in other videos that my first experience with digital art was this app called Drawing Pad I downloaded on my iPad mini. It had some fun features like crayons and stickers, but as you can probably tell, this wasn't a very good program for quality work, more meant for little kids to doodle with. By the way, I'm recording like this because I can't take screenshots, email, or airdrop anything from this thing anymore, so sorry about the quality. I remember I would always create the look of things like hair, fur, and just about everything else by scribbling down colors and then smudging them. It can't just be me who did this strategy as a beginner. It was pretty satisfying to blend the colors. Even though this isn't the best art app, I actually don't feel like it made my work any worse than it could have been. There were challenges for sure, like only having one layer, but I didn't even care because I didn't know any different. Eventually, I did get Procreate. And a bit off topic, but long ago, I started a stopwatch on this iPad, forgot about it, and discovered that it's still going while working on this video. If my math is right, I think this is about 7 years. This stopwatch has been going for a third of my life. Although at a point in high school, I got a much better setup for digital art, I kept drawing on my iPad mini and never did get an Apple Pen for it, just used my finger. This was actually fine with me, although I probably had to zoom way in to get accurate lines, and now I'm so used to a stylus that I'm not sure I could ever go back. It also did hurt my finger after a while. Like a lot of people starting out, I rarely used any reference, and I think this was partially because most of my drawing was doodling on paper or on my iPad at school, so I didn't know where I could properly display them. If I did have reference, I would just slap it onto the same canvas I was drawing on. I did this for a while actually, even when I started using Photoshop. This was tricky because I had to draw around or on top of it, and I couldn't see the reference if I was zoomed in anywhere. So most of the time. This is alright if it's your only option, much better than nothing, but there are probably better alternatives for you, even something like having references on your phone or any extra device you have on hand. In my first few years of doing art and PC programs like Photoshop, I was incredibly opposed to using keyboard shortcuts. I don't even remember exactly why. I guess I just thought they were confusing, and everything I needed was available on my screen. If I needed to switch between my brush and eraser, I would use the toolbar, and if I needed to resize my brush, I would open up my brush settings to adjust the slider, every single time. Eventually, I realized that keyboard shortcuts are actually not that difficult, and so much faster, especially for changing the brush size, which I currently have set to Z and X so that I can reach them easily with my left hand. Since I change my brush size pretty much constantly when I paint now, it's hard to imagine having to use the slider, which I was still doing only a couple years ago, I admit. You really don't need to memorize and use every single hotkey, but I can't recommend it enough for the things you use most. Now, moving on to the things I am most recently guilty of. I do a lot of my painting with a basic pressure opacity round brush, and noticed a while back that when I pressed down hardest, it wouldn't quite reach 100% opacity. If you also use pressure opacity, and this is the case for you, you should really try to fix that. It's not ideal. I tried resolving this by going into my device settings and turning the pressure sensitivity up a notch, but then it barely took any pressure at all to become fully opaque, giving me the opposite problem. So, instead of looking for other solutions, I just gave up, learned to live with it, and pretty much forgot it was a problem. It wasn't until about a month or two ago that I decided to look into it again, and after a while I was searching for pressure sensitivity issues on my specific device, and wondering why I seemed to be the only person on the internet with this problem, it occurred to me that it could be something in the program settings, not the device settings. And it was. It had been years, and it was such an easy fix. So don't be like me. If you have a problem, try to actually fix it. Finally, and somewhat related to that, is that when I get to a point where I'm comfortable with a program, I tend to use all the same tools and options, and whatever I don't use becomes almost invisible to me. Try opening up your own art or animation app, and look at all the random icons and windows you don't pay any attention to. There might be something in there that you would find super useful, but you've grown too comfortable with just using the things you know. I do a lot of my animation in TV Paint, and I've never felt a huge need to use smoothing there, but recently I was struggling with my line work a bit, and only then did it occur to me to look up whether that was an option on my version. It was, right here, sitting beside a bunch of tools I use all the time. Had I known that's what this icon did before, it would have helped me a lot. It's fun to just click on random things and see what they do, so if you haven't done that in a while, I suggest giving it a try. If you'd like to hear some more art advice or tips, you might like to check out one of these videos next. Thanks for watching!